New York Times bestselling series, The 39 Clues, Book 1, The Maze of Bones, by Rick Ryan. Five minutes before she died, Grace Cahill changed her will. Her lawyer brought out the alternate vision. She had been her most guarded secret for 7 years. Whether or not she would actually be crazy enough to use William McIntyre and never. Matt, he asked, "Are you sure?" Grace gazed out the window across the sunlit meadows of her estate. Her cat Saladin snuggled beside her as he had throughout her illness, but his presence was not enough to comfort her today. She was about to set in motion events that might cause the end of civilization. "Yes, William." Every breath was painful. "I'm sure." William broke the seal on the brown leather folder. He was a tall, craggy man. His nose was pointed like a sundial, so it always cast a shadow over one side of his face. He had been Grace's advisor, her closest confidant, her hall for life. They shared many secrets over the years, none as perilous as this. He held the document for her to review. A fit of coughing racked her body. Saladin meowed with concern. Once the coughing passed, William helped her take the pen. She scrawled her weak signature across the paper. "They're so young," William lamented. "Only their parents." "But their parents didn't," Grace said, bedheaded. "And now the children must be old enough. They are our only chance. If they don't succeed, then 500 years of work have been for nothing," Grace said. "Everything collapses. The family, the world, all of it." William nodded grimly. He took the folder from her hands. Grace sat back, stroking Saladin's silver fur. The scene outside was the window made her sad. It was too gorgeous a day to die. She wanted to have one last picnic with the children. She wanted to be young and strong and travel the world again. But her eyesight was failing. Her lungs labored. She clutched her jade necklace, a good luck talisman she found in China years ago. That had seen her through many close calls with death, many luckinesses, but she'd worked hard to prepare for this day. Still, there was so much left undone, so much she had never told the truth. "It will have to be enough," she whispered, and with that, Grace Cahill closed her eyes for the last time. When it was sure Grace had passed away, William McIntyre went to the window and closed the curtain. William preferred darkness, seemed more probable the business at hand. The door opened behind him. Grace's cat hissed, disappeared under the bed. William didn't look back. He was staring at Grace Cahill's signature on a new will, which had just become the most important document in the Cahill family's history. "Well," the Burcu's voice said. William turned. A man stood in the doorway, his face obscured by shadows, suit as black as oil. His face obscured by shadows. "It's time," William said. "Make sure they suspect nothing." William couldn't tell for sure, but he thought the man in black smiled. "Don't worry," the man promised. "They'll never have a clue." Chapter 2. Dan Cahill thought he had the most annoying big sister on the planet, and that was before she set fire to $2 million. It all started when they went to their grandmother's funeral. Secretly, Dan was excited because he was hoping to make a rubbing of tombstone after everyone was gone. figured Grace wouldn't care. He'd been a cool grandmother. Dan loved collecting things. He collected baseball cards, autographs of famous outlaws, Civil War weapons, rare coins, and every cat he ever had since kindergarten. All 12 of them. At the moment when he liked collecting best, there were charcoal rubbings of tombstones. He had some awesome ones back at the apartment. His favorite read Parilla Gold, 1891, 1922. I'm dead. Let's have a party. It figured that if he had a rubbing of Grace's tombstone in his collection, maybe it wouldn't feel quite so much like she was gone forever. Anyway, the whole way from Boston to the funeral in Bristol country, his great aunt Beatrice was driving like a very slow lunatic. She went 25 miles an hour on the highway and kept drifting across the lanes so the other cars honked and swerved and ran into guardrails and stuff. Aunt Beatrice just kept clutching the wheel with her jeweled fingers. Her wrinkly face was made up with Dago red lipstick and rounds, which made her blue hair look even bluer. Dan wondered if she gave the other drivers nightmares about all clowns. Amy, she snapped, as another SUV screamed down the exit ramp because Beatrice had just pulled in front of it. Stop reading in the car. It's not safe. But, Aunt Beatrice, young lady, close that book. Amy did, which was typical. She never put up a fight with adults. Amy had long reddish-brown hair, unlike Dan's, which was dark blonde. This helped Dan pretend his sister was an alien imposter. Unfortunately, they had the same eyes, green like jade, the grandmother used to say. Amy was 3 years older and 6 inches taller than Dan, and she never let him forget that being 14 was such a big deal. Usually she wore jeans and some old t-shirts because she didn't like people noticing her. But today she wore a black dress so she looked like a vampire's bride. Dan hoped her outfit was as uncomfortable as his stupid suit and tie. Aunt Beatrice had thrown a fit when he tried to go to the funeral in his ninja clothes. It wasn't as if Grace would care if he was comfortable and deadly. Very felt when he pretended to be a ninja, but of course Aunt Beatrice didn't understand. Sometimes it was hard for him to believe she and Grace were sisters. Remind me to follow you au pair as soon as we return to Boston, Beatrice grumbled. You two have been entirely too spoiled. Nellie's nice, Dan protested. Humph. This Nellie almost let you burn down the neighbor's apartment building. Exactly. Every couple of weeks, Beatrice tried their au pair and hired a new one. The good thing was that Aunt Beatrice didn't live with them personally. She lived across town in a building that didn't allow kids, so sometimes it took her a few days to hear how Dan's latest exploits. Nellie had lasted longer than most. Dan liked her because she made amazing waffles, and she usually cranked her iPod up to brain damage level. She didn't even hear when Dan's bottle rocket collection went off and strapped a building across the alley. Dan will miss Leslie when she got fired. Aunt Beatrice kept driving and muttering about spoiled children, and we secretly went back to her huge book. The last 2 days since they got the news about Grace's death, Amy had been reading even more than usual. Dan knew it was her way of hiding, but he kind of resented it because he shut him out too. What are you reading this time? He asked. Medieval European doorknobs, bath towels through the ages. Amy gave him an ugly face, an uglier than usual face. None of your business, dweeb. You can't call a ninja lord dweeb. You have disgraced the family. You must be Comet Sticapetu. Amy rolled her eyes. After a few more miles, The city melted into farmland. It started to look like Grace's country. Even though Dan had promised himself he wouldn't get sappy, he began to feel sad. Grace had been the coolest ever. She treated him and Amy like real people, not kids. That's why she insisted they simply called her Grace, not grandmother or gran or nana or any silly name like that. She'd been one of the only people who never cared about them. Now she was dead, and Dad to go to the funeral and see a bunch of relatives had never been nice to them. The family cemetery sat at the bottom of the hill from the mansion. Dad thought it was kind of stupid they had a hearse to carry Grace 100 yards down the driveway. They could have put wheels in the coffin, like on my suitcases, and that would just as well. Summer storm clouds rumbled overhead. The family mansion was dark and gloomy on a hill, like a lord's castle. Dan loved the place, with its billion rooms and chimneys and stained glass windows. He loved the family graveyard even more. A dozen crumbling tombstones spread out across a green meadow, ringed in trees next to a little creek. Some of the stones were so old the writing had faded away. Grace used to take Amy and him down to the meadow on their weekend visits. Grace and Amy would spend their afternoon on a picnic blanket, reading and talking while Dan explored the graves, the woods, and the creek. Stop that, Dan told himself. You're getting sentimental. So many people, Amy muttered as they walked down the driveway. You're not going to freak out, are you? Amy fiddled with the collar of her dress. I'm not freaking out. I just read crowds, he finished. But you knew there'd be a crowd. They come every year, each winter, as long as Dan could remember. Grace had invited relatives from all over the world for a week-long holiday. The mansion filled up with Chinese Khals, British Khals, and South African Khals, and Bazaluian Khals. Most of them didn't go by the name Khal, but Grace assured him they were all related. She explained about the cousins and second cousins, and cousins 3 times removed until Dan's brain started to hurt. Amy would usually go hide in the library with the cat. I know she did, but I mean, look at them all. She had a point. About 400 people were gathering at the gravesite. They just want her fortune, Dan decided. Dan! Well, that's true. They had just turned the procession when Dan suddenly got flipped upside down. Hey, he yelled. Look, guys, a girl said. We got a rat. Dan wasn't in a good position to see, but he could make out the Holt sisters, Madison and Regent, standing on either side of it, holding him by his ankles. Twins had matching purple running suits, blonde pigtails, and crooked smiles. There were only 11, same as Dan, but they had no trouble holding him. Dan saw purple running suits behind them, the rest of the whole family. The pits full. Arnold raced around their legs and backed. Let's fling him into the creek, Madison said. I want to fling him into the bushes, Regent said. We never do my ideas. Their older brother Hamilton laughed like an idiot. Next to him, their dad, Eisenhower Holt, and their mom, Mary Todd, grinned like it was all great fun. Now, girls, Eisenhower said, can't go flinging people into a funeral. It's not the occasion. Amy, Dan called. A little help here? Her face had gone pale. She mumbled, drop. Dan sighed in expression. She's trying to say, drop me. Madison and Regent did on his head. Ow! Dan said. Madison, Amy protested. Yes? Madison mixed I think all those books are turning your brain to mush, weirdo. If it hadn't been anyone else, Dan would have hit back, but he knew better with the Holts. Even the youngest could cream him. The whole Holt family was way too buff. They had meaty hands and thick necks and faces that looked like G.I. Joe flingers. Even the mom looked like she should be shaving and chewing on a cigar. I hope you losers took a good last look around the house, Madison said. You're not going to invite it back here anymore, now that old witch is dead. Ralph! Arnold, the people said. Dan looked around for Beatrice, but as usual, she wasn't anywhere near them. She drifted off to talk to the other old people. Grace wasn't a witch, Dan said. We're going to inherit this place. The big brother Hamilton laughed. Yeah, right. His hair was combed towards the middle, so it stuck out like a sharp fin. Well, till I read the will, right? I'm gonna kick you out myself. All right, teen, the dad said. Enough of this. Formation! The family lined up and started jogging towards the gravesite, knocking other relatives out of their way. And Arnold snapped at everyone's heels. Is your head okay? Amy asked guiltily. Dan nodded. He was a little annoyed Amy hadn't helped them. There was no point complaining about it. She always got tongue-tied around other people. Man, I hate the Holts. We got worse problems. Amy pointed towards the gravesite, and Dan's heart sank. The cobras, he muttered. Ian and Natalie Cobra were standing by Grace's coffin, looking like perfect little angels as they talked to the features. They wore matching designer mourning outfits that complemented their silky black hair and cinnamon-colored skin. They could have been child supermodels. They won't track anything during the funeral, Dan said hopefully. They're just here for Grace's money, like the rest of them. But they won't get it. Amy frowned. Dan, did you really believe that what you said about us inheriting the mansion? Of course you know Grace liked us best. We spent more time with her than anybody. Amy said like Dan was too young to understand, but Dan hated. Come on, she said. We might as well get over with. And together they waded into the crowd. The funeral was a blur to Dan. The minister said some stuff about ashes. They lowered the coffin into the ground. Everybody tossed a shovel full of dirt. Dan thought the mourners enjoyed this part too much, especially Ian and Natalie. He recognized a few more. Alistair O, the old Korean dude with the diamond-tipped walking stick who always insisted that call him uncle. The Russian lady Irina Spanky, who had a teacher in one eye, so the man called her Blinky behind her back. This starling triples, Ned, Ted, and Sinead, who looked like part of a cloned Ivy lacrosse team. Even that kid from television was there, Jonah Wizard. He stood to one side, getting his picture taken with a bunch of girls. There was a line of people waiting to talk to him. He was dressed just like TV, with lots of silver chains and bracelets, ripped jeans, and black muscle shirt, which was kind of stupid since he didn't have any muscles. An older African American guy in a business suit stood behind him. Sure. Didn't have any muscles. An older African American guy in a business suit stood behind him, punching notes in a BlackBerry, probably Jonah's dad. Dan had heard that Jonah Wizard was related to the Cahills. He'd never seen him in person before. He wondered if he should get an autograph for his collection. After the service, a guy in a Targonial gray suit stepped into the podium. He looked vaguely familiar to Dan. The man had a long pointed nose and a balding head. He remembered Dan above all. "Thank you for coming," he said gravely. "I'm William McIntyre, Madam Cahill's lawyer and executor." "Executor?" Dan whispered to me. "He killed her?" "No, you idiot," he whispered back. "That means he's in charge of her will." "If you will look inside your programs," William McIntyre continued, "some of you will find a gold invitation card." Excited murmuring broke out as 400 people leafed through their programs, and most of them cursed and shouted complaints when they found nothing. Then ripped through his program. Inside was a card with a gold-leaf border. It read, "Dan and Amy Cahill are hereby invited to the reading of the last will, transportation of Grace Cahill, where at the Great Hall, Cahill Manor, when now." "I knew it," Dan said. "I assure you," Mr. McIntyre said, raising his eyes above the crowd, "the invitations were not done randomly. I apologize to you who were executed. Grace Cahill meant you no disrespect. All of you members of the Cahill clan, only a few were chosen as the most likely." The crowd started yelling and arguing. Finally, Dan couldn't stand it and called out, "Most likely what?" "In your case, Dan," Iron Cabra muttered right behind him, "to be a stupid American kid." Sister Natalie giggled. She was holding an invitation and looking very pleased with herself. "Well, Dan could kick Ian in a soft spot," the gray-suited man answered. "To be the beneficiaries of Grace Cahill's will. Now, if you please, those with invitations will gather in the great hall." People with invitations hurried towards the house like somebody had just yelled, "Free food!" Natalie Cabra winked at Dan. Gotta go, cousin. Must rent collect a fortune." Then she and her brother strolled up the drive. "Forget them," Amy said. "Now, maybe you're right. Maybe we'll inherit something." But Dan frowned. If this invitation was such a great thing, why did the lawyer guy look so grim? Why had Grace included the Cabras? As he passed through the main entrance of the mansion, Dan glanced up at the stone crest above the door. Large seas surrounded by 4 smaller designs, a dragon, a bear, a wolf, and 2 snakes entwined around a sword. The crest had always fascinated Dan, although he didn't know what it meant. All the animals seemed to glare at him like they were about to strike. He followed the crowd and sighed, wondering why those animals were so mad. The Great Hall was big as a basketball court. Tons of armor and swords linking the walls and huge windows that looked like Batman could crash through them any minute. William McIntyre stood at a table in front with a projector screen behind him, while everybody else filled into rows of seats. There were about 40 people in all, including the Holts and the Cabras and Aunt Beatrice, who looked completely disgusted to be there. Or maybe she was disgusted that everybody else had been invited to her sister's reunion. Mr. McIntyre raised his hand for quiet, slipped a document from a brown leather fold. I adjusted his bifocals and began to read. "I, Grace Cahill, being of sound mind and body, to Irby divide my entire estate among those who accept the challenge and who do not. Whoa! Eisenhower Holt interrupted. What challenge? What you mean? I'm getting to that, sir. Mr. McIntyre cleared his throat and continued. You have been chosen as the most likely to succeed in the greatest, most perilous undertaking of all time. A quest of all importance for the Cahill family ruled at large. 40 people started talking at once, asking questions and demanding answers. Perilous undertaking, Cousin Ingrid shouted. What is she talking about? I thought this was about money, Jose yelled. A quest? Who does she think we are? We're Cahills, not adventurers. Now looked at Ian and Nellie Cabra, exchanged a meaningful look. Irana Spassky whispered something into Alistair O's ear, but most of the other spectators looked as confused as Dan felt. Ladies and gentlemen, please, Mr. McIntyre said, you'll direct your attention to the screen. Perhaps Madame Cahill can explain things better than I. Dan's heart did a flip-flop. What was Mr. McIntyre talking about? And the projector on the ceiling comes to life. The shouting of the room died down and Grace's image flickered on the screen. She was sitting up in bed with that salad on her lap. She wore a black dressing gown, like she was a mourner at her own funeral, but she looked healthier than the last time Dan had seen her. Her complexion was pink. Her face and hands didn't look as thin. The video must have been made months ago, before her cancer got bad. Dan got a lump in his throat, had a crazy urge to call to her, Grace, it's me. It's Dan. But of course, it was just an image. Looked at Amy and saw a tear trickling down her base of her nose. Fellow Cahills, Grace said, if you're watching this, it means I am dead. And I have decided to use my alternate will. No doubt you are arguing amongst yourself, giving poor Mr. McIntyre a hard time about this contest. I have initiated. Grace gave the camera a dry smile. You always are a stubborn bunch for once. Close your mouth and listen. Hey, wait a minute, Eisenhower Holt protested, but his wife shushed. I assure you, Grace continued, this contest is no trick. It's deadly serious business. Most of you know you belong to the Cahill family, but many of you may not realize how important our family is. I'll tell you the Cahills have had a greater impact on human civilization than other family in history. More confusing, shouting broke out, and when Spassky stood up and yelled, Silence! I wish to hear. My relatives, Grace's image said, you stand on the brink of a greatest challenge. Each of you has a potential to succeed. Some of you may decide to form a team with other people in this room to pursue the challenge. Some of you might prefer to take up the challenge alone. Most of you, I'm afraid, will decline the challenges and run away with your tails between your legs. Only one team will succeed, and each of you must sacrifice your share and inherit to participate. She held up a manila envelope sealed with red wax. Her eyes were bright and hard as steel. If you accept, you shall be given the first of 39 clues. These clues will lead you to a secret which should you find it, will make you the most powerful, influential human beings on the planet. You will realize the destiny of the Cahill family. I now beg you to all listen to Mr. McIntyre. Allow him to explain the rules. Think long and hard before you make your choice. He stared straight into the camera. Dan wanted to say something special to them. Then an enemy, I'll miss you most of all. Nobody else in this room really matters to me. Something like that. Mr. Gray said, "In counting on you all. Good luck and goodbye." The screen went dark. Amy gripped Dan's hand. Her fingers were trembling. To Dan, it felt like they just lost Grace all over again. Then everyone around them started talking at once. "Greatest family in history," President Ingrid yelled. "Is she crazy?" Stubborn, Eisenhower shouted. "She called us stubborn." "William," Alistair's voice rose above the rest. "Just a moment. There are people here I don't even recognize. People who may not be members of our family. How do we know?" "If you're in this room, sir," Mr. McIntyre said, "you are a Cahill. Whether your surname is Cahill or not doesn't matter. Everyone here has Cahill blood." "Even you, Mr. McIntyre?" Natalie Cabra asked in her silky British accent. The old lawyer flushed. That must be beside the point. "Now, if I might be allowed to finish. But what is about sacrificing our inheritance?" Aunt Beatrice complained. Where's the money? It's just like my sister come up with some foolishness." "Madam," Mr. McIntyre said, "you may certainly decline the challenge. If you do, you will receive what is under your chair." Immediately, 40 people fell around their chairs. Eisenhower was so anxious that he picked up Regan's chair with hers still in it. Dan discovered an envelope under his, stuck on with tape. When he opened it, he found a green slip of paper with a bunch of numbers on the word Royal Bank of Scotland. He may have one too. So did everybody in this room. "What you hold is a bank voucher," Mr. McIntyre explained. "It shall only be activated if you choose and when you renounce your claim to the challenge. If you so choose, each of you may walk out of this room with $1 million and never have to think of Grace Cahill or her last wishes again. Or you may choose a clue, a single clue that will be your only inheritance. No money, no property, just a clue that may lead you to the most important treasure in the world and make you powerful beyond a belief." William's gray eyes seemed to settle on Dan particularly. "Or it might kill you." $1 million or the clue? You have 5 minutes to decide.